Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nell and this is Little Yellow House Crafts, and this is a special edition floss tube. I'm not going to do any whip updates or finishes or progress or anything like that. This is going to be strictly about my organization, how I organize all of my stash. A lot of you guys were really interested in seeing how I organize my patterns. Some people mentioned fabric. I know many people have asked about my thread organization in the past, so I just thought I'd do it all in one video. But before I do that, I do have one of my roller frames here along with my table stand, because I've gotten quite a few emails in the last few weeks from people asking, how do I get my, fabric tight enough on my roller frame? What size of roller frame fits a fat quarter? How did I make my table stand? All of that. So we're just gonna really quickly talk about this and then we'll go on to my organization. Okay, so this is my Liberty's Welcome by Plum Street Samplers. And this is on a roller frame. This is on the new roller frame dowels that I just purchased this year. For those of you who are interested, a fat quarter of fabric, I believe that's usually between 27 and 29 inches long. I think it's usually about 28 inches. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure. I went ahead and purchased roller frame dowels size 28. These are 28-inch roller frame dowels. Now, please bear in mind when you buy roller frame dowels, 28 inches refers to the distance, the usable, workable distance. So they don't include this. Okay, so if you want to fit a 28-inch piece of fabric, you can purchase 28-inch dowels because they're measuring from here to here, the actual workable, usable length. You don't have to try and add a couple inches on either end. You don't have to worry about that. So these are size 28 dowels, 28-inch dowels, and these fit my fat quarter on them perfectly. Now this fat quarter is a Lakeside linen fat quarter. I don't know, it's I think this is vintage. What is this? I don't know what it is. It's Lakeside linen, 40 count, and it fits perfectly on these dowels, and you can see with about a ½ inch on either side of extra space. So if you want to be really safe and make sure that all of your fat quarters will fit horizontally on dowels, I would maybe go for the 29-inch. Just to give you an extra inch of wiggle room, but these are the 28-inch dowels and they fit a fat quarter lengthwise just great. Now I will, someone asked me about how do I get my fabric tight enough on my roller frame dowels, and this is the thing about working on any scroll frame. Even the Millennium frames, even, there are a lot of different scroll frames out there to choose from. There's, like I said, there's the Millennium frame, which I believe comes from England. There's a type of a scroll frame that comes from like Croatia, or no, comes from Ukraine. I can't remember. It's another one. I can't remember what it's called. Maybe the Elon? No, that's a different one. Like I said, there's a lot of different kinds of scroll frames. They all work a little bit differently. Some, you have a slot system where you tuck fabric down into a slot and then you insert a very small dowel over it to hold it tight, and then you scroll it. The roller frame uses a spike system. So if you've seen roller frame dowels before, one side of the dowel has a bunch of little nails poking up and the other side of the dowel has matching holes. And all it does is it allows you to actually put your fabric onto the spikes so it doesn't slip from between the dowels. Some just work straight tension. There's just a slotted dowel that you slide your fabric into and it just uses tension to hold it in place. I like the roller frames because I find it does hold tension a little bit better than some of those just like split rod type frames. I have never used a Millennium frame or any of those other fancier scroll frames. But I don't feel the need to because I like my roller frame. I also really like the roller frames because they're very light. Okay, some of those big frames, the Millennium frames and things like that, are very heavy. They're very solid, very well made, but they are heavy. So if you don't have a dedicated stand or, you know, something to work on, it's very cumbersome. These are incredibly light, okay? How do I get my fabric tight? If you can see, when you're working on any kind of scroll frame, your fabric is not gonna be drum tight. There is a little bit, you can see, there's a little bit of give to my fabric. That doesn't bother me. I'm okay with that. I can work with that. It's holding enough tension that my fabric isn't bunching or anything when I stitch, so it's holding it tight enough for me. If you prefer to work on things that are absolutely incredibly drum tight, then I would either go with Q-snaps or hoops. Hoops can hold them pretty tight, especially if they're new, or look into one of those frames from overseas. Those I've heard, I don't know, but I've heard those are incredibly sturdy and they will give you some pretty intense tension. So if that's important to you, that's something to keep in mind. But you can see that I do get fairly good tension on this. I don't have a lot of gapping. I don't have any wrinkles. It's holding it nice and flat. You can see it's pretty, the tension is not bad in this, okay? And all I do when I am loading my fabric onto my roller frame, and I got this tip from Vonna, the Twisted Stitcher, and unfortunately she has taken her videos down, but if you go to her blog, I don't know if her blog is still up either. Anyway, I got this tip from Vonna, so I want to give her credit. When you are loading your fabric onto your dowel rods, you roll them up and you don't worry too much about how tight they are. You put your sidebars on, you tighten the wing nuts, not all the way tight, but to where they're, you know, they're reasonably tight. And then what you do is you work it. You do this kind of motion and you twist, 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 twist your fabric along. I'll do it all the way down and then I'll go all across again, and I try then to twist my dowel rod a little bit further, and then I tighten the wing nuts again, and then I do it again. Work the fabric down so you're tightening it with your hand, and then you're trying to twist the dowel rods a little bit further. And after about 2 or 3 times of doing that, I end up with this kind of tension, and it'll hold it. This I could leave, I mean, typically I do unscrew these when I'm putting it away and I don't want to take it off the frame just to relieve the tension a little bit, but this will hold. These will not slip and it will stay this tight until I loosen it. So that is how I get tension in my scroll frames. Again, if you prefer your fabric to be absolutely positively drum tight, this is probably not the right fit for you. There are other scroll frames that may work better, but I can't speak to that because I've never tried them. I know that with my Q-snap, I can get drum tight tension, and I know that with hoops, I can get drum tight tension as long as the hoops are relatively new-ish. They don't have to be brand new, but as they get older, they start to loosen up. I don't use hoops anymore, but I did when I was first starting to stitch, and I could get pretty tight tension on those too. So that's the thing about the roller frames. If you stitch in hand, all of this is irrelevant to you, and you're so fortunate. I have tried stitching in hand before, and it's just not comfortable for me. I find it cumbersome. It's probably though because I learned to stitch on a hoop. It's kind of however you learn how to stitch is typically what becomes easiest for you. If you learn how to stitch in hand, then by all means, keep stitching in hand and you don't have to deal with all of this nonsense. If you prefer to have some sort of a frame, like myself, that is one option, the roller frame. Okay, table stand. Now, I'm not gonna give actual dimensions for this. I'm not gonna take it apart and measure things, and I'm gonna give you estimates, okay? Right now, my table stand is very wide because you can see here, it's very wide because I've been using it to for Liberty's Welcome, which is a very wide piece. This little extra piece of PVC here with this connector is not usually on my table stand. So if you can imagine pulling this piece and this connector off, and then this piece of PVC fits into this connector, and it's about maybe 16 inches wide. That's typically what I work on for 90% of my table stand usage. And I use this when I'm using my roller frames on bigger pieces. This is what it looks like. You can see, oh, it does twist because I don't have the pieces glued because I like to be able to take it apart, but you just have to press them together to get it to stay. So you can see I have a bottom piece, a T, with a piece of PVC going that way and a short one going that way. It has a foot on it. I would like to get feet for the front ones, but I don't have them right now. And then we have, oh, maybe a 12-inch piece of PVC going up with an elbow joiner. And then we have a little bit of PVC and we have a T connector. We have the same thing on this side, the elbow, a little bit of PVC, and then a T connector. And then we have one longer piece for however wide you need your table stand. This is where you decide how long to make this piece. You could have several different sizes and you could switch them out, or you can do like I do, where I have one that I typically use and then I have an extender when I want it wider. Then you have the part that the actual stitching rests on, and that is those are these things. You can see coming out of the T connector, you have a piece. This is probably 8 to 10 inches long, I'm not sure. An elbow, a little tiny piece, and another cap or foot or whatever you want to call that. And I have that on both sides. And basically, if you can see, that sits on your table. These legs hold it in place. This you can twist up and down. You can see, you can actually adjust how you want this middle piece positioned. And then your roll of frame sits right in there. It rests on these and kind of along the top here, and you have plenty of work. And I can put one hand under my work and one hand over if I want to do two-hand stitching, or I can just do one hand and reach under to pull and then come through again. So this works great for me. It was really inexpensive. It is not hard to make. And if you go to a hardware store or a home improvement store, a lot of times they will go ahead and cut the PVC for you. If you come with, a list of all of the lengths that you need, you tell them I need 2 12-inch lengths, I need, I don't know, 16 and then an 18-inch length here for the middle, and I need 2 12-inch lengths for the legs and 2 10-inch lengths for this, and then a bunch of little short pieces. And then they will cut it for you. They will cut it for you right there in the store. At least they did for me. I think sometimes they'll cut like the first 4 cuts for free or something, and then they charge like 25 cents a cut. I don't know. It's not expensive, and it's easier than me cutting it myself. And then you just go find all of the bins, buy all the connectors that you need. This is, I believe, 1/2 inch PVC. I don't know if I even remember. It's not the widest, thickest PVC. I think it's maybe it's not 1/2 inch. Yeah, because with PVC, the width refers to the width inside, right? Anybody actually know this? I don't know. My husband knows, and he helped me with this. Regardless, it's not hard to make. Just use, draw a diagram, use your brain and figure out what kind of connectors you need, or just look at mine, freeze frame this video and write down all the different connectors you need, and you can build one. And it holds everything just through tension. I don't have anything glued on it. As long as you push it together nice and hard, I don't have my piece like falling a whole lot. Sometimes it will start to move down, and then I just rotate it back up, squish it together, and it's stuck again. Again, it just works with tension. So that's my table stand. Okay, that's enough about roll-of frames and table stands. If you have other questions, feel free to leave it down in the comments, or if you want to email me, you're welcome to do so. But hopefully that answered a lot of questions about those things. Okay, let's talk about organization. Now, I want to preface my organization by saying my organization is very practical, okay? It's not the most aesthetically beautiful, and that is because I need to be organized and keep my stuff contained to a small area, because my craft room is also my office, and it's also my husband's office, and it also has a bookshelf with all of our homeschooling materials in there. So, and it's not a big room. It's a fairly small bedroom. So I have to be really smart with how I use space in that room. I do have, so just to give you an idea, I'm not going to take you in there because it's a little bit messy right now, but there's a bookshelf, there's my desk, which is a corner desk, so it has two sides. Then I have my cutting table that has my cutting mat on it, and that is my general workstation. I use that to cut fabric. I use that when I'm assembling, you know, fully finishing objects. I use that cut table for everything. When I use my sewing machine, that goes on my desk. Then next to my cutting table is my husband's desk and his bookshelf with all of his medical books, and he has a lot of stuff from med school, reference books for pathology and all of that. So that is the room. And it's not huge, so I have to be really, really efficient with my space. So some people have craft rooms and organization that's incredibly aesthetically beautiful, and beautiful wire baskets out, or I love this, someday I would love to be able to do this. They have all their linen folded and then stacked on a bookshelf so you can see all of the linen all the time. It's so pretty, like in a cross-stitch store. I would love to have that someday. But right now, what I have is practical and organized, and it takes up a very small amount of space. So let's talk first about my overdyed. We're going to talk about threads first. Let's start with overdyes. You guys have seen these before. These are my SnapWare containers. These I purchased at Joann's. You can also purchase them on Amazon. I will try to leave a couple of links down below. They are not incredibly inexpensive, okay? They're kind of pricey for what they are, which is just plastic bins. However, Joann's will often have storage sales. They'll have sales on all of their plastic storage, and that's when I would recommend you purchase them. You can see I got mine in the after Christmas sale, so I got Christmas colors. They're usually like clear and blue, or white and blue or something like that. So just look for good sales, keep your eyes out. I use the thicker ones. They also have thinner ones that are only about this thin. Obviously, I wanted mine thicker. They also have even taller ones that I think are double the size. But for me, this works really well. This is how I organize my threads. I organize them by color family because you guys know I don't necessarily use called for threads, hardly ever. Okay, I almost always choose my own threads. So what works best for me is to look at the pattern and be like, okay, I need two reds, a lighter red and a darker red. And I can go to my reds and dig around in here and find what I need. Now, if you prefer to use called for threads 90% of the time and you have a large collection of, say, Gentle Arts and Classic Colorworks and Weeks, then I would really recommend organizing yours how Vonna the Twisted Stitcher did hers, and I believe Nicole at Nicole's Needlework does hers this way as well, where it's in a file box and they're hanging from rings and you can organize them alphabetically so you can find the exact thread that you need. But again, for me, someone who chooses my own threads all the time, this is what works for me. And this also works well because if you remember, Victorian Motto, which is by far my favorite overdyed thread and which I have the most of, comes in much larger skeins. Her skeins are 20 yards. So these would be a little bit bulky to put on bobbins. There's too much thread to put on a bobbin, frankly. So, you know, you just need to find what works for you. If you mostly have Classic Colorworks, Weeks, Gentle Arts, then you could probably bobbinate yours and keep them in a bobbin box, which I'll show you a great bobbin box in a second. But again, I have mostly Victorian Motto, and they come with a lot of thread, and so bobbinating is not really practical with them. So anyway, these are mine. I have reds, oranges, yellows, light or bright greens, prim greens, aquas and turquoises, and blues. I'll fix that later. Dropped it. And then I have another stack of 6, which has my purples, pinks, peaches, and corals, and like flesh, Caucasian flesh colored. Then we have browns, we have golds and tans, and then we have whites and like creams and ecru's, and then down here grays and blacks. So that is what works for me. That is how I have it organized. It may happen someday that I outgrow the 2 stacks and I have to get a 3rd stack, and maybe split the color families even more with like light blues and dark blues and light purples and dark purples. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but the nice thing about this is it's very flexible, it's very easy to change around, and you can see it holds a lot of thread. Each one of these, let me just snap it apart, each one of these holds a lot of thread. I mean, there's probably 30 or 40 skeins in there of different purple colors. So, you know, it's a practical, very efficient way to store them. I can see through them, so I can see what color I need, and it's very quick. You just snap it and get into the color you need and then snap it back together. And when I'm kitting stuff up, I will have them like all unsnapped and like spread in front of me, all the colors, so I can grab the tray for what I need and pick colors. So that's how I organize my overdyes. That includes my Victorian Motto, my Classic Colorworks, my Weeks Dye Works, my Gentle Arts, and I do have a few Color and Cotton now. So all of that is split up by color family and put into those SnapWare bins. Let's talk about my DMC next. This is the floss box that many of you have and I have had for years. It's also from Joann's, at least I got mine at Joann's, and it is a double-sided floss box, you can see. A lot of people use this. I'm sure you've seen this on YouTube before, or you may have one yourself, and they just open up. And I have DMC bobbinated in number order, and I have the full set in here. You can get a full set of DMC. It gets a little tight, and I don't have the newest colors from DMC. There were like 10 or 20 new colors, so you may not be able to fit a full set in here anymore, but if you don't need a full set, just bobbinate everything you have and it'll probably fit. This is a pretty big, spacious container, or you just buy a second one and have two of them. Now, I used to work exclusively from bobbins for years. I would bobbinate everything. DMC, overdyes, silks, everything I bobbinated. And that worked for me at the time. In the last year or so, I have kind of started moving away from bobbins. I still will work from bobbins if stuff is on bobbins that I need, but I find I prefer to work from a pull skein. And you've seen in my videos how I make my floss tags, and I put my floss on those little floss tags and I put them on a ring and keep them with the project. So I also have some DMC that is no longer on bobbins, but is on those floss tags, and currently they live in a Ziploc baggie. I don't have a good storage system for these. This is all DMC that's on floss tags, and it's sitting in a bag. Most of them are on a ring. There's a few that aren't on a ring here, and they're in a Ziploc baggie. I need to figure out what I'm gonna do with my DMC that are on floss tags, because I like using them this way. I'm finding that I prefer that now, but I don't have a good storage system. I need a better system for keeping them. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry. It was a late night last night. Happy 4th, by the way. Happy Independence Day. We were up late doing fireworks, and I am tired. If you have a suggestion for me for what to do with my DMC that is on floss tags. DMC I prefer to store by color. Or not by color, by number, because I actually do use the numbers more than I use color families with DMC. Currently, maybe that'll change, I don't know. So I have them on this ring in like number order, numerical order. But if you have an idea of how I can store my DMC that are on tags, please let me know down below, because I don't know what to do. Last thing I have for DMC is I just have a photo box, and in this photo box is all of my extra DMC. And these are skeins, and these I just have in Ziploc baggies, and the numbers you can kind of see up there. I have written on them in permanent marker by number family. So this is Blanc and Ecru, and then 100s and 200s is in this baggie. And it goes all the way up through the 3,000, 3,800s is the last bag. Yep, these are the 3,800s, and they're back here. So that is how I store all of my extra DMC, and that works great for me as well. I can just throw, you know, when I buy DMC but I don't need it, yet because I still have some on a bobbin or on a thread ring, then it goes in here and it keeps them out of the way, but they are organized enough that I can go find the number bag I need and then find the thread that I need inside. So that is the last way that I store my DMC. All of that fits in a space, all that thread fits in a space about this big. I put the photo box on the bottom, and I stack my 2 towers of over-dyed cottons on top of it, and then right next to it, standing vertically, is my DMC bobbin box. So it's incredibly compact and space efficient, and I can find what I need quickly. But again, those DMC on the thread tags, help me please. I don't know what to do with them. Okay, let's keep going. Next is, let's talk about fabric. We'll do patterns last. My fabric, I don't have an enormous fabric stash. I have a fabric stash, decent sized fabric stash, but it's not huge. I don't have tons and tons of fabric just waiting around. I am more of a, I prefer to buy fabric with a specific project in mind, and so I don't necessarily just buy fabric. Sometimes I do, but it's the exception, not the rule for me. So this little plastic tote, it's a small size plastic tote. I think this is from Walmart. It's the Holmes brand, H-O-M-Z. And here you go. Latching clear storage. This is a 31 quart size, 16 1/4 by 13 by 12 1/8. So, and it matches to lid B, in case you're wondering. Why am I holding it way back there? You can't see it. It's a 31 quart. We got this at Walmart. It's clear, I can see into it, and it works for now. If my fabric stash ever exceeds the size of this, I'm gonna have to figure out something else. Oh, there's all my fabric. But for right now, it works. And then inside it, on top, these are extra Ziplocs. On the very top, I have in Ziploc bags fabric that is for specific projects. So you can see here, you can't see that pink. I have a, hold please. I have a piece of mat board in there for finishing. That's the other thing. When you have project specific fabric bags, you can also throw finishing stuff in there. So this, I have a pink sticky note in here that says Cottage of the Month. This bag is all of my my fabric squares for my Country Cottage Needleworks Cottages of the Month. Then I have, this is for all of my hands-on design, a year in chalk. And they're labeled with a sticky note. This is for all of my Prairie Schooler months. I have them all in one bag. This is for my Brenda Gervais word plays. This is that fabric that I tea and coffee dyed myself. And I cut it down and then zigzagged the edges. This is for the word plays. And then I have my Snowflower Diaries fabric. A few more pieces left. I don't have a whole lot of that left. And this is for my Lizzie Kate Blocks with Charm fabric. Okay, so project specific things that I have cut down and they're specifically for one thing, I put in a Ziploc bag with a sticky note. Then in here I have fabric in Ziploc bags, big Ziploc bags, separated by count. So 25 count fabric. This is my biggest one, 28 count. This is all 28 count. It includes linen, it includes even weave. I don't have any Aida anymore. I used to stitch on Aida, but I don't have anymore, so I don't have to keep a separate size or a separate Ziploc baggie for Aida, but you would do the same thing. If you stitch on Aida, you just have a bag for 14 count, 16 count, 18 count, etc. Here's my 32 count fabric. And then at the, I have one piece of 36 count left. I don't stitch on 36 count a whole lot. And then I have, oh wait, no, sorry. That is 36 count. This is also 36 count. I do have a few more pieces of 36 count. It just had its own bag, so I left it in it. And then down here is my 40 count. This is my 40 count fabric. Oh look, I do have a little bit of Ada left. It was sitting at the bottom. It's got a little flag on it from a Prairie Schooler pattern. So I have a tiny bit of Ada left. And that's it. I do have some of these, which are, I got these in a fabric haul, oh, years ago now. It's Zweigart fabric. Someone was selling a huge stack of like 100 packages of Zweigart fabric. It includes linen, it includes even weave, and I keep it in here because it's just easier to find what I need. And I still use it. I've used over half of it at this point, so that was a really good find. I found that on eBay. And that is how I organize my fabric. It's not, again, like I said, it's not the most aesthetically pleasing, okay? They're all just in plastic baggies sitting in a plastic tote. But it allows me to find what I need. I can find, I typically choose fabric by count, so they're separated by different counts. And then I can go in and see what I have, see if I have something that will work, and then if I don't, I can order what I need. So, and then all of my project-specific baggies. So many baggies. Again, someday I would love for my stash to be more aesthetically pleasing, but for right now, this is practical. It takes up not a lot of space. I'm able to put this on a wire shelf in my craft room closet. It keeps dust off of it. It keeps, I don't know, I've never had any problems with it, and I live in a pretty humid climate, so it works for me. That is my fabric. Last but not least is patterns. What I'm going to show you has all of my patterns with the exception of my Mill Hill kits. My Mill Hill, you guys know I have Mill Hill Santas. I have a lot of them. They are just in a plastic baggie and they sit on a shelf because they don't fit very well into this. But for all of my other patterns, this is what I use. And it's a little bit heavy. It's a file box, and you can see I have files, and I will show you what they say. You can see that I have mine the wide way. So file boxes, you can buy hanging file folders that are shorter and go across this way, and you can also buy wide ones that go the lengthwise, and that's what I have. It's not because I decided that was better, it's because I found this file box and all of these hanging file folders in our Goodwill for like $5. The whole thing. And I saw it and I said, ooh, cross stitch patterns. So I bought it. And so that's the way I have mine, because those are the file folders that came with my file box. But you could go either way. If you want to have a lot more categories, it might make sense to go this way rather than this way, the way I have it. Does that make sense? Anyway, so here's what I have. You can find plastic file boxes like this at Walmart for very cheap, and hanging file folders are not expensive. So again, this is practical. It keeps everything organized and it takes up a very small amount of space. Again, it's not the most visually aesthetically pleasing, and this is not a very visual way to organize because you can't see. When you just look at it, you can't see what you have. So if you're a really visual person and you need to see everything, this is probably not the best organization system for you, but it works great for me because, you know, it keeps them really organized and I don't have to go searching for things. So my files that I have in here, in the very front, I have these green ones, these kind of olivey green ones. I have 4. And these are labeled spring, summer, fall, winter. And these are for seasonal patterns, okay? So, for example, in spring, I have my Country Cottage Needleworks seasonal celebrations, spring, okay? And I even threw its fabric in there with it, just to keep them together. So anything that is seasonally specific, spring, summer, fall, or winter, goes into those first 4 files. Then after those first 4 files, I have 12 of these colorful ones, and those are months. I have January through December, and those are for monthly series. So for example, again, I have in here my Brenda Gervais January wordplay and my Prairie Schooler January chart. So these are for specific months. I even have in here, I have the full series of Blackbird Designs Anniversaries of the Heart, and even though these aren't technically, they don't say anywhere that they're monthly, they're monthly. So I have the first one, number 1, which is Snow Garden, in my January file. So that is how I organize all of my monthly series. That is also where I put holiday specific charts. So for example, if I were to go into April, I would not only find April charts, but I would also find Easter specific charts. So I have a couple Brenda Gervais Eastery charts, okay? And then in, you know, October, I have Halloween. In July, I have Independence Day. In November, I have Thanksgiving. In December, I have Christmas. I have by far the most in my December folder. There's a lot of charts in there, and I may eventually need to get a separate just Christmas file. In fact, I probably will get separate files for actual holidays because I have like Lizzie Kate series in there. Here's another one. This is the Christmas Rules, as well as the Lizzie Kate Christmas Spirit with Charm series. So, you know, there's a lot in that December file. You can see that's the widest one there, that red one. And there's a lot in there. So that covers seasonal, monthly, and holiday specific charts. Then there's a few more categories that I have behind that. The first one is samplers. Okay, I'm not a huge sampler stitcher, but I do have some samplers. For example, I have the Ufendel sisters booklet, the double-sided booklet that came out a couple of years ago. I bought it because I thought these were the most beautiful samplers I'd ever seen. I don't know if I'll ever stitch them. Maybe someday I will get more into samplers than I am now, but for right now, I have it, and I have a sampler thing. I also have And a Forest Grew by Rosewood Manor, which is very much sampler-esque in there. So, you know, I have a file for samplers. Then I have a file for Americana. And this is for Americana that is not specifically 4th of July, Independence Day Americana. This is other things. So, for example, the Heritage Sampler by Plum Street is in there. My Mayflower Landing by Little House Needleworks is in there. General Americana. I have my Amish Life series that came from the magazines, the triptych. I have the first one done of these, but I have this one done, but I don't have the other two done yet. The Amish Life series is in that Americana file because it's Americana, but it is not 4th of July. Then I have a miscellaneous and freebies file. And that's the last one. And I just have freebies from blogs, when designers post free charts. There were a lot that came out during the Be Well and Stitch thing when quarantine first started. But I also have, most of my freebies are from like Plum Street because I really love Paulette's stuff and she has a lot of great freebies. Hands On Design has a couple, just, you know, freebie charts. And I will throw them in that miscellaneous and freebie file. And that is how I organize my stash. Those are all the patterns I have. Most of my stash is monthly or seasonal or holiday specific stitching. I don't have a lot of general Americana or samplers. But again, if you have a lot of a certain category of chart, you can make a file folder for it. And I do think I am gonna eventually have to make separate holiday folders because especially for Christmas and Halloween, I have a lot of charts for those two holidays and they're starting to kind of clog up their month files that they're in. But anyway, this is what works for me. And then I have a whole bunch of extra hanging file folders here in the back. So if someday my stash grows even more, I can put them in there. And again, I don't have a huge chart stash, so mine all fits in one file box. Yours may not. If you've been collecting for 50 years, then you probably wouldn't fit in this, but I haven't been collecting that long. So for right now, this works great. In the very back of all of this, I have this little guy. I actually have two of them, but the other one's empty. This is just a Velcro closed. This contains all of the charts of things I have already stitched. I used to give away charts, or I'd sell them on Stash and Load or whatever, and I kind of gotten away from doing that, not because I have a problem with it, but more because I want to keep my stuff in case I ever want to stitch it again. You know what I mean? So this is not organized at all. It's heavy and really full, and I need to find a better way to store charts that I've already stitched. But they all just go, when I finish something, after I show it to you guys, the chart gets put into that blue folder. And then I know if I'm looking for a pattern that I've already stitched, I know where to look. That is my chart storage. And that, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any gentlemen watching, is how I organize all of my cross stitch stuff. Yeah, it works for me. It's practical. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It's not the prettiest, but it is organized. So I hope that gives you some ideas. If you are looking to reorganize or update your organization or change things around a little bit, I hope this was useful to you and gave you some good ideas. If you have any questions, please comment down below and let me know what they are. Otherwise, I will see you next week for a regular WIP update, regular video with, I have some fully finished things to show you that are done completely and they're beautiful. So I'm excited to show you those. Couple finishes, lots of WIP progress. So that will be in my next video next week. All right, guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you real soon. Bye.